Every morning, as the mist rises over the Ganges, a thick, bitter smoke curls into the sky from the ghats of Varanasi. Here in this sacred city, the spiritual heart of India, life and death blur into one. The Caste keepers of ancient fire tend to burning bodies with hands darkened by generations of ash. Tourists chant prayers just steps away, while charred limbs float silently downstream. Pilgrims bathe in what they call holy water, unaware or unwilling to see that it's laced with decay. Varanasi is not just a city, it's a contradiction made of flesh and flame, prayer and pollution. This is where faith meets fire and nothing is ever truly clean. Number 1. The holiest city or the dirtiest? Varanasi. To many, it's not just a city, it's a doorway to heaven. One of the oldest continuously inhabited cities on Earth. This spiritual epicenter of India welcomes over 35 million pilgrims and tourists every year. They come with faith in their hearts, believing that dying here, or even touching the water of the Ganges River, can wash away a lifetime of sins. Varanasi is where prayers float on incense smoke, and where chants echo through ancient alleys. It's revered, poetic, eternal. But just take one wrong turn and the poetry collapses, because behind the veil of holiness lies a haunting paradox. The so-called City of Light is drowning in darkness, not metaphorically, but literally. Streets overflow with garbage. Open sewers snake their way past shrines. Cows chew on plastic bags, while barefoot children dodge burning trash. And then there's the river. The Ganges, worshipped as a goddess, is now one of the most polluted rivers in the world. In some stretches near Varanasi, fecal bacteria levels are over 1,000 times higher than what's considered safe for bathing. The water dark and still carries the traces of age-old rituals. The air is dense with the scent of incense and smoke from the ever-burning funeral pyres along the riverbanks. Some ceremonies are completed, others left unfinished. Now and then, objects drift downstream, quiet reminders of life's impermanence. And yet, just a few meters away, pilgrims step into that same water. They cup it in their palms, they pour it over their heads, they believe it heals, cleanses, saves. That's the contradiction of Varanasi. A place that promises purity while bathing in pollution. A city that speaks of liberation while many of its people live trapped in poverty, caste, and neglect. Over 1/3 of Varanasi's population lives in slum-like conditions without reliable access to clean water or sanitation. According to the Indian Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, as of 2024, only 46% of the city's waste is properly treated. And still, they come from across India, from across the world, drawn by myth, mesmerized by tradition. But very few leave unchanged. Some find peace, others find discomfort. Many leave with questions. How can the holiest city be one of the dirtiest? How can so much suffering exist in a place that promises salvation? These aren't just questions for Varanasi. They're questions for all of us, about belief, about responsibility, about what we choose to see and what we choose to ignore. Because Varanasi is not a fairy tale. It's real, raw, and yes, sometimes rotten. But it is precisely in that mess of devotion and decay that the real story begins. Number 2. The sacred river is dying. To most Hindus, the Ganges River isn't just a body of water. She's a goddess. Her name is Ganga. Her flow is believed to purify sin, liberate souls, and carry prayers to the heavens. Millions come to her banks every year. They bathe in her waters, drink from her stream, and scatter the ashes of their loved ones, trusting in her divine grace. But what happens when a goddess starts to decay? In Varanasi, the Ganges is no longer the shimmering ribbon of purity sung about in scriptures. Instead, it moves like slow black syrup, thick with sludge, choked with waste. A recent study by the Central Pollution Control Board in early 2025 found that fecal coliform levels in the water near Varanasi exceeded safe bathing limits by over 1,200 times. Let that sink in, not one time, not 10, but more than 1,000. And people still step into it, daily, eyes closed, hearts open. Why is it so bad? Because everything, and I mean everything, ends up in the Ganges. Human remains, some fully cremated, some not, raw sewage from the city's overflowing drains, industrial waste from nearby factories, even sacred offerings, flowers, oils, broken idols meant to honor the river end up suffocating her. Over 300 million liters of untreated sewage enter the river every single day. And this isn't ancient history. This is happening right now, in the age of space travel and artificial intelligence. The tragedy isn't just ecological, it's deeply human. People who rely on the river, most are often the ones suffering the most. Children playing at the ghats get skin rashes and respiratory infections. Priests who perform daily rituals develop chronic illnesses. Fishermen whose livelihoods depend on the river now pull up more plastic bags than fish. According to the Indian Journal of Public Health, waterborne diseases like typhoid, cholera, and hepatitis A have increased by over 30% in riverside communities since 2020. And yet, faith persists. Devotees come splash water on their faces and whisper mantras into the breeze. They don't see bacteria, they see blessings. But maybe the saddest irony of all is this. A river once believed to cleanse all sin is now crying for help. And not from the heavens, but from us. From those who worship her and those who forgot to protect her. So the question is no longer, is the Ganges polluted? The question is, how much longer can we keep calling it holy while watching it die? Number 3. The Dham, living from death. In Varanasi, the city of salvation where millions come to seek freedom from the cycle of rebirth, there exists a community bound to death like no other, the Dham. For centuries, they have held the exclusive right to cremate the dead at the ghats of the Ganges, performing the sacred last rites in Hindu tradition. It's a role wrapped in religious honor, yet soaked in deep social shame. Because while the flames they tend guide souls to moksha liberation, the Dham themselves remain shackled by caste and poverty. You won't see their names in history books or hear their voices in the chants. But without them, the eternal fires of Varanasi would go cold. They are the keepers of death, working day and night to burn the bodies of strangers, many of whom consider them untouchable. It's a cruel irony. The very hands that deliver salvation are not even allowed to share the same well water as those they cremate. Most Dhams live in slum neighborhoods on the edge of the city, crowded, unsanitary, often without basic electricity or clean water. According to a 2024 survey by the National Dalit Movement for Justice, more than 70% of Dham families in Varanasi earn less than the national poverty threshold, which is roughly equivalent to $2 per day. They have no social security, no healthcare benefits, no protection when illness strikes from the toxic fumes they inhale daily. And the work. It starts young. Some Dham children begin helping at cremation sites as early as age 10. Not because they want to, but because they have to. Their school is the burning ghat, their curriculum, a daily lesson in firewood, smoke, and silence. They carry logs tend to half-burned bodies and learn to recognize death by smell alone. Childhood, as most of us know, it doesn't exist here. It burns away slowly in the same flames they help keep alive. But despite everything, the poverty, the caste, stigma, the health risks, they keep going. Because this is not just a job, it's inheritance, tradition, survival. Still, one can't help but wonder, what happens to the soul of a child who grows up watching death every day, who learns to tie the sacred cloth around a corpse before they even learn to read? The Dham community doesn't ask for pity. What they ask for is dignity. Recognition, a chance to live, not just burn in the city they've served for generations. Number 4, cremation that pollutes the living. In Varanasi, fire is not just an element, It's a passage. A burning pyre beside the Ganges River is seen as the ultimate farewell, the sacred bridge between this life and the next. For centuries, Hindu cremation rituals here have followed one traditional rule: wood fire only, no gas, no machines, just logs, flames, and faith. But faith, as it turns out, comes at a cost, and not just a spiritual one. Every single day, nearly 800 bodies are cremated along the Ghats of Varanasi. According to data from the Indian Ministry of Environment published in early 2025, this requires an estimated 500,000 kilograms of wood daily. That's 500,000 kilos burned in ritual smoke every single day. Stretch that over a year, and you get more than 180,000 metric tons of timber going up in flames. That's not just wood, that's forest. That's oxygen. That's entire ecosystems turned into smoke and ash. And it doesn't stop there. The traditional cremation process releases harmful pollutants into the air: carbon monoxide, fine particulate matter, and even dioxins. These are not just difficult words from a science book. They're what people inhale every time they walk near the river. The World Health Organization reported that Varanasi's air quality index regularly crosses 200, which is classified as very unhealthy. And that's on a normal day during festivals or peak pilgrimage season. It gets much worse. Then there's the water. Not all bodies are fully burned, especially those from poor families who cannot afford enough wood. A complete cremation can cost between $400 to $600 worth of wood, a sum far beyond the reach of many. As a result, partially burnt corpses, or sometimes unburnt ones, are released into the Ganges. These bodies, carried by the current or trapped in floating debris, leave behind a haunting sight: a human hand reaching out of the water, or a skull lodged between rocks. The ashes, too, go directly into the river. Rich in phosphorus, nitrogen, and heavy metals, they disrupt aquatic life and accelerate algae blooms that choke oxygen from fish. The river, already struggling to breathe, is further poisoned in the name of purification. But the most painful irony: what is meant to liberate the soul is slowly destroying the land it's performed on. A ritual meant to honor life is harming the very air we breathe and the water we drink. And the ones who suffer most, the poor, are both participants and victims in this cycle. Number 5. Spiritual tourism, real consequences. Every year, more than 30 million people walk into Varanasi like it's a dream, a place where life feels slower, prayers feel louder, and time almost seems to stand still. They come from across India, across continents, drawn by stories passed down through generations. Stories that say, if you bathe in the Ganges, your sins are washed away. If you die here, your soul finds peace. But behind the spiritual magnetism lies a less talked about truth, one that smells like sewage, sounds like honking rickshaws, and feels like an overcrowded maze. Let's talk numbers. 30 million is not just a figure. It's the equivalent of the entire population of a country like Nepal, compressed into one ancient riverside city. And Varanasi, as sacred as it may be, is not built for that kind of pressure. The city's basic infrastructure, waste management, sanitation, transportation, is crumbling under the weight of its own sanctity. As of early 2025, only 42% of the city's sewage is properly treated before entering the river, according to the Central Pollution Control Board. The rest, it flows untreated straight into the Ganges. The result: overflowing drains, piles of garbage along the Ghats, and a constant buzzing swarm of flies that follow you like a shadow. Yet for many visitors, the discomfort is part of the pilgrimage. They come ready to endure it. Some even embrace it, bathing in the murky water, sipping drops of what they call holy nectar, believing it has the power to heal, to protect, to bless. And that's where the paradox turns dangerous. Because that same water carries human ash, industrial runoff, and harmful bacteria. A health report from the Banaras Hindu University in late 2024 found that up to 55% of foreign tourists who bathed in the Ganges developed gastrointestinal issues within 72 hours. That's more than half. Yet still, every sunrise you'll see people entering the river chanting, crying, and cleansing. While right beside them, a funeral pyre burns and cows relieve themselves on the steps. And it's not just the water. The roads are packed, traffic is gridlocked, and locals often struggle to get to work or hospitals because tour buses block narrow alleyways. The economy thrives on this spiritual tourism, no doubt. It brings in billions of rupees annually, but it also pushes the city's resources past their breaking point. So while the pilgrims seek salvation, the city gasps for breath. It's a complex picture, one where faith fuels chaos and devotion quietly contributes to decay. And yet, how do you tell someone that their path to the divine is paved with plastic and sewage? You don't strip away belief, but maybe you guide it gently. Because if we want Varanasi to remain a city of light, not a city of waste, then belief must walk hand in hand with responsibility. Number 6. Ash coins and daily survival. Beneath the sacred rituals, behind the chants, and just under the surface of the Ganges, another world quietly exists. One not of priests or pilgrims, but of survival. In the City of Light, there are people who make their living from the dead. Every day, when the funeral pyres fade and the families walk away, the scavengers arrive. They are not part of the ceremony, but they wait for what's left behind, not prayers, but particles. In the ashes of cremated bodies, there can be remnants of gold, rings, silver chains, or even metal implants. Some of these valuables survive the flames, and for the people who sift through the ashes by hand, that leftover glimmer might mean food on the table. It's a job that's dirty, dangerous, and completely unregulated. According to a 2025 investigation by the Human Rights Watch India, over 1,000 people in Varanasi, mostly from marginalized castes, work in this hidden economy. They're known locally as rag pickers of the dead. Some earn just a few hundred rupees a day, the equivalent of under $2 for hours spent breathing toxic air and handling human remains. Most do it without gloves, without masks, without any support. And then there are the divers, the ones who go deeper. In parts of the Ganges where the current slows, coins settle at the bottom, tossed in by worshippers as offerings to the river goddess. Children, some as young as 8, dive into these polluted waters, holding their breath for 30 seconds or more, hoping to find a coin, a bracelet, or anything they can sell for a few rupees. But what they risk is far more than just exhaustion. The Ganges is full of pathogens. Open wounds, lung infections, skin disease. These are common among these river divers. In a 2024 report by the Banaras Public Health Forum, nearly 68% of child divers surveyed showed signs of waterborne illness, and worse, a few don't make it back to shore. Yet these children aren't in school. They're not in clinics. They're in the river every day because there is no other option. Their parents are often part of the same economy. Their homes are often within walking distance of the cremation sites. For them, the Ganges isn't a holy river, it's an employer. And this quiet desperation, this daily hustle for gold dust and sunken coins is rarely seen by the millions who come to Varanasi searching for peace. But it's there, right beneath the feet of the pilgrims under the same water they call sacred. So the next time we picture Varanasi as a place of eternal light, maybe we should also remember the shadows. Because when death becomes currency, survival is paid for in ash and breath. Number 7. Billions spent, Ganges still dirty. In 2014, India launched a mission that sparked hope, a bold billion-dollar promise to save its most sacred river. The project was called Namami Gange, which means salutations to the Ganges. It aimed to clean the water, build sewage treatment plants, restore ghats, and make the Ganges once again a symbol of life instead of decay. Fast forward to today, the year 2025, and the question echoes louder than ever. What went wrong? Let's look at the facts. The Indian government has poured more than $5 billion into the Namami Gange project over the past decade. That's the equivalent of building hundreds of hospitals or thousands of schools. The plan included setting up 151 sewage treatment plants across multiple states, especially in heavy pollution zones like Varanasi. But here's the reality on the ground. Many of these treatment plants are either unfinished, operating below capacity, or worse, completely abandoned. A 2025 audit report from the Comptroller and Auditor General of India revealed that at least 37% of these facilities remain non-functional. In Varanasi alone, 2 out of 5 sewage plants are either offline or treating far less waste than they're designed for. So where did all that money go? The truth is, murky. Locals and whistleblowers point fingers at mismanagement, bureaucratic delays, and in some cases outright corruption. Funds disappear, projects stall, contractors walk away. Meanwhile, raw sewage continues to pour directly into the Ganges, with estimates placing the untreated discharge at over 3,000 million liters per day across the river basin. But it's not just the infrastructure, it's also the mindset. Many people still dispose of waste, both household and ritual, directly into the river. It's not always out of disrespect. Sometimes it's ignorance, sometimes it's tradition, but without proper education and community involvement, no amount of concrete or pipework will save the Ganges. This disconnect between ambition and action, between funding and follow-through, has turned Namami Gang into a symbol not of success, but of struggle. And it raises deeper questions. How do you clean a river that's not just polluted with waste, but with centuries of belief? How do you build a sewage plant next to a shrine without offending the people who see that water as holy? The Ganges doesn't just need machinery, she needs management, she needs maintenance, she needs a movement led not just by governments, but by the people who live, pray, and survive along her banks. Because until the system changes from the top down and the bottom up, the river will keep flowing but not healing. And no matter how beautiful the slogan sounds, Namami Gange means nothing if the river it praises is still choking on its own sacred filth. Varanasi is a city of light, of prayers, of passage, a place where millions believe the soul finds its freedom. But beneath the incense, smoke, and sacred chants lies a stark contradiction. The very city that people worship is being slowly destroyed by that same devotion. Throughout this journey, we've walked through burning ghats, where children carry firewood instead of school books. We've seen sacred waters blackened by waste rituals that choke the air, and a silent workforce scraping life from the ashes of death. We've met the forgotten, the unseen, the ones who keep the sacred alive, often at the cost of their own dignity and health. But this isn't just a tragedy, it's a wake-up call. Varanasi doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be protected. The time has come for the government to go beyond slogans and invest in real, lasting solutions. Sewage treatment that works, healthcare for workers, sustainable cremation alternatives. For local communities to embrace both tradition and education, knowing that reverence for the Ganges should begin with respect, not just ritual. And for travelers like us, maybe it starts with looking a little closer, listening a little longer, asking, am I part of the solution or just another pair of feet on the Ghats? Because if we truly honor Varanasi, its history, its soul, its people, then preserving it must become part of the pilgrimage. Not just taking from it, but giving back. At the end of the day, a holy city is not defined by how many come to worship, but by how well it treats those who live and die there. If this story moved you, if it opened your eyes, made you feel something, let's keep the conversation going. Share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to NVL Travel Documentary for more stories that look beyond the postcard. And if you believe places like Varanasi deserve better, maybe together we can help make that happen. Because this isn't the end of the story, it's just where the real change begins.